A-E-1 short.
My name is Felix Lopez. I am a restaurateur, hospitality manager, and event organizer. And this is at Sometime Somewhere for AT1 Radio. When I was 16, I asked my friend if I could get a job working with him at this restaurant in Chelsea Piers. It was called Boutique Eat Shop. This restaurant was so small, I kept on banging my head. I didn't even fit in this kitchen. Eventually, I just needed the money, so I just dealt with it. You know, I'm getting a check. I'm 16. You're making like $300 to $400 a week. That's amazing for you. You know, helps me pay my dues. I was actually very fortunate to work with the people that I worked with because, you know, sometimes when you work in a place, people don't want to teach you. And in this place, they actually taught me the basics from how to hold a knife, how to saute, how to sear meats. And at the moment, it was just my summer job, but I was comfortable with it. And I just kept on going back. Every week, I was like, I'm going to quit. Every weekend, I just didn't want to go. But being like first generation Mexican American, my parents made sure that they basically told me that I had to work for this. You know, you had to work hard. I had to go out there, and I can't just wait for a handout. So at a young age, that's what I did. When I was working there, I met 3 people that actually changed my life. That literally changed the course of my life. That's Mark Valoria, Richard Kashida, and Chef Charles Cho. I worked very close with Mark as he was the one that training me. Chef Charles Cho was actually the executive chef, but those guys didn't like me. That's how real it was. Until I basically proved myself after 6 months. You know, I was just a kid. You're a kid working in a kitchen when these guys have been doing it for their whole life. So they just think I'm a clown. I'm just joking around. But little did they know I was actually going to be one of the best ones in the team. It got to the point where more doors started opening up for me, and I slowly transitioned from back of the house to front of the house. Mind you, I've spent about 5 years in working in the kitchen. Made my way up to sous chef, but I just felt like that was it for me. I feel like I capped out there. Then that's when I transitioned to working in front of the house. When I started working in front of the house, I managed a couple restaurants, and I was just a floor manager, nothing crazy. But eventually I worked my way up to being like operations manager and general manager. Definitely getting more fulfillment working in front of the house. I'm a very talkative person, and I get bored of the same routine pretty easy. So working with the same 5 people for multiple years on end, it gets a little tiring. And the minute I started working in front of the house, it's like all the doors opened up for me because you never know who's coming into the restaurant. You know, sometimes it could be somebody. Well, as long as you build a relationship with somebody, that's kind of how it starts. So working in front of the house allowed me to meet different people, allowed me to start building my network that helps me execute the events that I do now. Working in the kitchen is not easy. That is not an easy job. And it can be very stressful. It can definitely affect people's, I'm just going to say mental health for sure. But I enjoyed creating for people, if that makes sense. I've always enjoyed being that person that likes bringing people together. So every time I would manage a restaurant, I looked at it as people were coming to my house. You know, how do you want to be hospitable? Come hang out, have a seat. Let me get you a drink. Are you hungry? We have some music. You want to dance? You know, just come have a good time. So moving in front of the house, I feel like definitely nurtured my soul. How I got to Habanera Blues, I'm going to say it was really just me. Blind luck in a way. Once I started working Boutique Eat Shop. After Boutique Eat Shop, I worked there for 2 years and then I had quit. But Chef Mark Valoria had reached out to me 2 years later because they were opening up a new restaurant called Gin Ramen in Morningside Heights. They reached out to me. Clearly, I had proven myself enough for them to want me in their team, and I worked with them for a couple years. It got to the point that I felt like I felt like I had learned what I could learn, but I just wasn't interested in working in the kitchen anymore. And that's when I transitioned to working in front of the house. But I tried to take that leap on my own without any connections and kind of just started applying randomly. So typed up a resume, went on Craigslist, sent it out to like 50 locations, and I went to whichever interview called me first. And the first interview that called me was actually this Brazilian steakhouse in Queens called Reina's Churrasqueria. It's the largest steakhouse in Queens. For some reason, I like working at the largest places and wherever I go. But that location, I lasted 1 month because I got fired. So I wasn't used to waking up early. I work kitchens. I got to get there at 12 p.m. I get out like at 2 a.m., so I wasn't used to that morning life. And once I got fired from there, it's kind of like a little like it gets you a little upset. Like, damn, I couldn't make it. So then I did the same thing. Typed up another resume, sent it out, see who called me. And this time I got called into this restaurant called Reichenbach Beer Hall, which is a German beer hall in Midtown on 36th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue. Largest German beer hall in Manhattan. I worked there for a while. And when these guys, they saw my personality. I was very energetic. I like talking to people. I'm like that hype man at the events. Then these brothers actually opened up the Habanera Blues. So that's how I got to Habanera Blues. And the reason I say it's blind luck is because I was just doing my job. I had fun doing it. And the management team that they hired for that location, they all just quit randomly. Like, nobody showed up. Then they came to me and asked if I could go help for a couple weeks. And I said, sure, why not? But the minute I got there, it's like that's exactly what I've wanted my whole life. I needed a venue that had the equipment, that had the sound system, that had all the bells and whistles for you to do a proper night out. And yeah, I ran with it. I started hosting events little by little. Started reaching out to small DJ friends and just trying to curate a vibe. We curated the vibes and it was picking up. But around, I'm gonna say, the pandemic, what was that? Yeah, like March 16, 2021, everything kind of had to come to a pause. And that was very shocking because at that time I was actually trying to line up events and trying to work with Corona. I was trying to bring like sponsors, and it's a big venue. It's almost a club. It used to be a club, and I was trying to recreate that energy. But once the pandemic hit, they told us we were going to take a week off, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, all right, let me take a week off. After that week, clearly things weren't going to go back to normal. And that's when I had to gather a little bit of money, reach out to one of the original people that I spoke with, which is, like I said, Richard Kashida, because he was opening up his first own location, which was a restaurant, bar, cafe. And he actually wanted me to be his manager. But with all the experience I had, I didn't want to just go back to managing, and I wanted something more. I wanted to be able to basically create my vision and make it come to life. So I spoke to Richard. We had a few negotiations, went back and forth, and they got to the point where I just became a managing partner after investing some money. And that was, for me, the first time where it was like, okay, this really is on me. If this succeeds or this fails, like, this really is on me. It's not about me taking orders, and that's where it really comes down. Like, you got to believe in yourself, you know. So once I started doing those things, like, my first 3 to 4 months were pretty tough, because I was so used to working for somebody. I'm expecting for somebody to tell me what has to be done or what needs to happen. And that's, little by little, was like opening my eyes. Like, okay, there's nobody here to really tell you anything. You need to figure it out. You need to understand what's going on, what the flow is, and overcome it. It's like opening a restaurant is hard in general, but opening a restaurant during the pandemic, when nobody's allowed to dine in, nobody's allowed to come in, you're only allowed to do takeout. We didn't even have outdoor seating. I felt like I made the biggest mistake of my life. That was that was quite the experience, though, because fortunately they were sending out those stimuluses, so it really wasn't a risk. I kind of took it as like, let me invest my money. If anything goes wrong, I guess I'll just go get another job. But that's how I made my way from line cook, prep cook, sous chef, front of the house manager, and everything I learned from line cook still helps me out till this day. A lot of people, they become managers and they don't understand the back of the house, or people from back of the house don't understand the front of the house, and they need to understand that you need both things to literally make a proper system. So I feel like that's where I got my strength, having the back of the house, front of the house, investing the money, just taking a risk. I feel like I was pressed up against the wall, man. It's the pandemic hit. Like, the pandemic was huge. I don't want to really focus on it, but as far as restaurants, it collapsed. The industry collapsed. Nothing, I've worked in restaurants from the moment I was like 16. 2021, I was like, well, maybe like 23, I'm not sure. So a good 7 years of my life dedicated to this, and all of a sudden now it doesn't exist. You can't go out, you can't, nothing, everything is just gone. And I realized that the only people that weren't struggling that much were the business owners. Sure, you fire everybody else, but you just still keep on moving. And I needed to put myself in that position. And I was still young. I was like 26 years old, I think, when I partnered up with that. And at that time, I felt really like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'll go back to work. But I was really like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, I just, you just gotta bet on yourself, make everything happen. There is no waiting around. And if you think it, execute it. If it works, great, keep going. And if it doesn't, figure out something else. I feel like I got lucky because, like I said, those people that I worked with, they were passionate people about their craft. And I was just like a sponge. Anything they would say, even if I wasn't part of their conversations, I would try to sit next to them, just kind of like pick their brains, overhear what they're saying. And they're the ones that really taught me that. Well, let me say this first. When I was actually managing for Habanera Blues, and I was the youngest member in that management team, the rest of the managers were like in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Like they spoke about like knowing New York from back in the days, from like Studio 54 days, and they basically they would have ideas and it all sounded like they just knew what they were doing. And so one day when we were in this meeting, the boss asked a question and I just whispered the answer to myself, thinking that like, oh, this isn't going to be the answer. But the general manager said what I said word for word. And that's when I started like what I learned from Richard, Mark, and Charles kind of just like flashed back in my head. And I was like, wow, like it's really just about spitballing ideas, see what sticks, tailor that idea, and just try to go from there. And that's really what it comes down to. You can't be perfect. You can't wait for the right idea. It's just think of one thing and do it. Okay, so right now I am working with this company called Two Girls Cook Shop. They're a Jamaican taco pop-up that goes all over the city. Scratch that. We go all over the states. We've been obviously New York, we've done Atlanta, we've done Miami, we've done New Orleans for Essence Fest. We're gonna go do Aspen later this year, and then I think we're also going to California as well. That's a trip, man. That's really like I have to drive to all these places because I'm the one driving all the equipment, but I like it because I'm in a way it's like when you're born and raised in New York City, you don't really live in New York, and when you leave New York, you realize how sheltered we are in New York, you know. So once I started leaving, I really just took it up because I've always wanted to work for travel, and that's what they offered. They would pay our flights, they would pay our stay, they would pay everything. And when you work in the restaurants, for those that know, you don't have the luxury of taking time off. You cannot take Friday, Saturday, or Sunday off. And in this place, I'm gone from Monday till Monday. We work, we go out, everything is paid for. And it was really more of a me getting to see what's out there more than anything, because it also inspires me, see what other cities are doing. Every city is different. Every city does something else, the culture, what they like. And going to these different places always gives me ideas, because when I come back over here, I'm like, oh shit, we should be doing these things. We should try to create more of a open environment. New York is too exclusive, which is why I don't like, I guess, in a way. I'm more of like let everybody kind of like partake in this. And yeah, that's really why I liked working with them. We've met a lot of celebrities. I'm not somebody to remember faces, but we've had Lil Wayne eat our tacos. We've had Kendrick eat the tacos. We've been on Breakfast Club, Elvis Duran. For anybody wondering, Two Girls Cook Shop is in Smorgasburg every Sunday. So I definitely recommend you guys check it out. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing. But also, we've been hosting events. Every last Tuesday of the month, we focus on doing a taco party. So we're trying to. That's my own brand that I'm trying to build to the point where we're gonna go from restaurant to restaurant and just work with what we think are the best tacos. We'll bring the entertainment, we'll collaborate with them, and ideally, I'm just trying to be able to do my pop-ups with different people. Partner up throughout the place. Throughout the cities, states, everything. May not be the last thing, but I'm definitely moving in the direction of opening up my own hospitality consulting group. I've realized that through all the restaurants that I work with, every place is always missing something, and I've been blessed to be able to see it, because I'm going to use these things for my next spot to obviously help you succeed and not fail, but I'm trying to focus on curating events for the most part. This may be a bit of a big dream, but I do want to put it out there, and it's curating festivals, making festivals happen. That's also another reason why I took this job, because she introduced me to basically the organizers for these events. And when you meet them, they've told me something that just is stuck to me, and it's like, it doesn't matter if you're doing a small event or a big event, it's going to be the same stress. So you might as well just go big. And I think that's where I'm trying to go in the next couple of years, First festival, I wanna collaborate everything with art, fashion, food, music. Literally, I'm trying to have a little bit for everybody. How can we blend technology and food, which there's actually some friends that I have. I want to shout them out. Hallucinated Studios. They do VJ and projection mapping. So they create like I want to be able to work with them and basically create like a dining experience where they create an immersive dining experience for you. You get to see a whole show while you're enjoying your food, and find ways to just mostly find ways to make people connect. That's what it really comes down to. Everybody would be able to get along with each other if they could meet in like a calm setting and kind of be able to hang out and just get to know each other. That's like my goal, ideally, just connecting people. I'm really just capable of doing anything, and I say this because, like I said, I'm first generation Mexican American. My parents came here from Mexico. They don't really have a support system here, so all they really knew was like work hard, go to school, do what you can, and then try to find a job where you can make it. But I realized that to have confidence in yourself, you gotta believe in yourself. If you have an idea, stick with it. Just make it happen.
AE1 short.
At Sometimes Somewhere is produced by Audio-Technica for AT1 Radio. It is recorded at AT1 Studio at Technica House, New York. Follow AT1 Radio and Audio-Technica USA on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening.